I guess we'll get started. I asked Jen to introduce me, but she's so shy. We didn't want to do that.
Everybody knows who you are,
Does everybody
George?
know who I am? I'm George Dumont, by the way. Now you know who I am, really. Thanks for putting shades on the windows, by the way. I really appreciate that. It's kind of weird that we're here in a snowstorm talking about a bike event. I mean, it's kind of ironic a little bit that we're doing that. But.
I'm hoping that you scheduled in some snow days for Bike Maine.
Oh my God, that'd be awful. This event is quite big, okay? And I'll go through where it actually starts and where it will end, which is really Presque Isle and ends back in Presque Isle. But there are three host communities that have been selected to be involved with Bike Maine. And one of the first stops, which I'll go through earlier, is Madawaska, and Susie Parody is actually in charge of she's the coordinator for that town. But Gary, you're here representing Madawaska today, so we have Madawaska represented here today as well. So for some of you have questions about on the Madawaska end, because there's the logistics in each community, and of course they'll move from Madawaska to Fort Kent, and I am the logistics person there, the bike coordinator for Fort Kent, and Jen and her husband. Are you doing it alone, or is he really going to help you?
Maybe I'll let him help.
Jay,
You got all the cameras.
you better, okay?
All the cameras on.
And so we're the three communities in the valley, really, that are host communities. Now there are other communities involved besides the actual host communities, but I'll go through that in a little bit here, really. I really want to give you, the goal here tonight is really not to really get into the little nitty-gritty, who's going to do this and what's going to do that. I mean, we may get into some of that, but I want to give you the big picture. I think it's important that you understand the big picture, because without it, all you're going to see is a very focused end of it. For example, if you're the Knights of Columbus in Fort Kent, you're focused on food. You don't really understand the big picture of what's going on. So I'm trying to this evening, if I don't do anything else, but at least give you the big picture of what Bike Maine's about and what it'll mean for us. So, what is Bike Maine? Bike Maine is really, they're connected to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and Bike Maine is really an experience. It's really something that I could compare it to as bikers. We get mail all the time to the Napa Valley. Go bike the Napa Valley. And this is really what it's about. It's kind of a celebration of our local heritage, and they'll usually showcase an area, and then they'll get the people involved, and they really want to really blend into it what this area is about. This is really what Bike Maine 2018 is about. A couple of years, or last year, was in the Greenville area. The year before was on the coastal area, which I think ended up towards the Eastport area. But they biked quite a ways up. They were biking up a long route, a straight route, all the way up the coast. So each year they pick a region to be able to showcase the state of Maine. And of course, we were lucky. They didn't pick Aroostook County. They picked Northern Aroostook County. So what they offer these riders is a fully supported 7-day ride. Is really what they're offering these folks that are actually paying big money to get to this thing. It's always held in mid-September, and the reason for that is because it's after Labor Day. Generally, we have still good weather anywhere in Maine during that time, and it's between seasons. So it really helps them a lot to be able to, get an additional amount of people into the state of Maine to be able to show Maine what Maine's about during a time when normally we'd be kind of like not doing much. There wouldn't be much going on at all. Working with these folks, and I think Jen and Gary would agree that there's money spent on this thing. You have to understand, first of all, as a rider, if you were lucky enough to register early, which, by the way, I think
It's sold out.
Well, it was sold out, but I think more than 2/3 was sold out before we even announced the route.
Mm-hmm.
Before the route was
Yeah.
involved. And if you were lucky enough, you paid like around $1,000 for that 1-week trip. And if you waited a little too long, which some do, obviously, to register, it's to $1,200. So the people who are paying this money, when they're laying this money down, they're expecting to get a high quality event. Now, we would think high quality would be like, gee, they're going to be staying in hotels and the finest of foods. In fact, no, they're staying in tents. The largest majority of them will be staying in tents. Again, I'll cover that in a little bit here. So, what is Bike Maine? Bike Maine, the goal is to promote the state of Maine. And remember, this is, as it says on the last line, it's really, it's an event hosted by the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. They're the people who are hosting this actual event. Well, I see some more people coming in, so I'll wait here, I'll hold. Our Knights of Columbus people are coming in here, so. The goal really is, again, to be able to not only focus the attention to our region, but it's also to be able to, the host communities, get an economic shot in the arm on that. So it's kind of a twofold thing, really. We're going to, the showcase thing is really the big thing for them. Maine really is trying to, Bicycle Coalition of Maine, the Bike Maine group, are really just trying to showcase areas. The result in 2017 was that there were participants from 40 states, 6 countries. There was an estimated $660,000 generated that were generated as a result of that event. I'll break that down for you in a couple of the slides here, really. So the economic impact to Maine was quite large here, really. And these people are coming really not just from the area, they're coming from all over the world. In the past 5 years, they've generated about $2.3 million in the regions that they've visited. And keep in mind, they've been doing this now for 5 years. Gotta make sure I'm going the right way on that. Okay, so what are they offering to riders? These riders that are shelling $1,000 to $1,200 for the ride, what are they offering? Well, they're offering them to be able to give them about a 55-mile-a-day ride. Some days are a little less, some days a little more, but they're going to guarantee that each day that the riders are on the road, that they're going to be enjoying roughly about an average of about 55 miles. They're going to have an overnight stay in the heart of the host communities that are hosting these things. And the host communities will have a bike village where when they arrive, they'll set up their tent for those folks that are brought their own gear. Some people don't bring their own gear, they actually rent their gear from Bike Maine. And a few, not many, but a few will actually be staying in local hotels.
The motel's full.
Yeah, so there are some people they really want to experience this thing, but they're really not entertaining. But it's for sure that the majority of them are hardcore bikers. I mean, these aren't people who really just decided last week that they're going to get on a bike and ride. You can't, for those of you who ride, and there's several in the room here who are riders, you can't get on a bike and ride 55 miles a day for a week without having to be somewhat conditioned for that. If nothing else, the saddle sores will just really tear you up. So, these folks are used to riding. They could be riding in even, more mountainous conditions or flatter conditions. It's not really, for these folks here, they're coming here for the experience. Not necessarily because, hey, there's great hills here and the challenges are great. They're coming here for the experience. Obviously, in a week's time, they'll socialize a lot with these riders. When they set up their bike village and everything else, or when they're riding on the road, they'll be doing a lot of socializing, meeting people from all over the country, all over the world. And that's a big thing for people who are biking. They want to be able to interact with the locals that are here. That's one of the big things that they like to do, is get into these communities and really find out what's going on in these communities. Which means, like in Fort Kent, for example, and Madawaska, well, they'll have a chance to walk in the downtown area. Senegat will have to be planning around that because the location that was selected is actually up here. But the challenges for Senegat will be to keep these folks active, to be able to do, plan things that these folks will want to do. Obviously, they're sourcing local foods. The goal is to source about 65% of the food that they'll be feeding these bikers will be sourced locally. Some of them purchased in stores, But what they really are very interested in doing, for example, going after local beef companies, you know, like Heuristic Beef. That'd be an example.
Did all the potatoes.
Pineland will be doing their potato stuff, for example, the mashed potatoes and stuff like that. So to give you an example, their goal is to reach about 65% of the food that they're actually going to be feeding will be sourced locally. Fresh if they can get it. These folks want to be entertained, and obviously at some point they're getting ready for the next day, because the next day is another 50 some odd plus miles. So so what does Bike Maine offer the host communities, the people who, the evenings that they're going to be staying overnight? What are they offering them? Well, obviously they're going to teach us how to be leaders, but actually we probably could teach them how to be leaders, really. We've done a lot of events where we can gather volunteers and we can hold events. We're very good at that. The Valley is very good at that. We're not afraid really to find these people, but not all communities are like our communities. You know, they'll sometimes get into communities, host these events, and they bring those communities together, something that communities have never done before. Obviously, they're promoting and showcasing this area. This is really the big thing that they're offering us. They're really showcasing what we have to offer here in Northern Aroostook County. This is the big goal of Bike Maine. This is really a tourism attraction, a tourism goal for them, if you may. So by doing that, they've asked us early on to supply a lot of pictures and stuff like that. Paul's here, for example, supplied a lot of pictures that really went on their website, and that website goes all over the world. So when they announced where the routes would be, and each of the host communities, where they were going to be, there are photos of those communities for every evening that they're staying, whether it be Presque Isle, Caribou, Madawaska, Fort Kent, Sagat. There are pictures of those host communities there. So they're showcasing us. Obviously, they feel after we're done, we're going to have a lot of community pride. Again, we're used to running a lot of these large events, sometimes even bigger than this. And of course, the obvious thing for us, Bike Maine's offering us an economic opportunity to be able to make some money with this. And that's what they want us to do. They're not bashful to tell us that they're a nonprofit organization looking to benefit other nonprofits. This is what the demographics looked like last year, in 2017. This is actually what the demographics look like. Don, I hope I'm not blocking you here. So the demographics don't look quite like this year. I'll go through it with you. Last year, there were 400 riders that were involved, that were registered involved into the event. This year, they've increased that for the first time in 5 years to 450 people. Last year, of those 400 people, only 136 of them were from Maine. So 264 of them were either from other states, provinces, or other countries. About 2/3 of them are male, about 1/3 of them are female. About 145, almost 150 people were really here as return riders. People who really enjoy this Bike Maine event and just want to be able to experience what other parts of Maine have, or they came from another country, another state or whatever, love Maine and they're coming back to Maine. And the age range, as you can see here, is quite broad, but the average age being around 50. So we're not dealing with an overly old crowd or an overly young crowd. There's a big diversity of ages here, but if you had to average them out about age 50. This year, the demographics look a little different. I don't think Jen or I or Gary have been privy yet to know where they're actually all from, but we do know that almost half of the registrants this year are from Maine. And that tells a big story. If you think about it a little bit, why would half of the people that traditionally the demographics don't look like that, why would half of them this year be from Maine? It's because people from other parts of the state of Maine are interested in coming to Northern Aroostook County to be able to say, hey, listen, I've never been to Aroostook County. Or I think I've heard it's a beautiful place, I'm registering, I want to be a part of this thing. Which I think personally, if I think about it on an economic side, it would be good for us, because these are people that in one day can get up here, as opposed to somebody from some other state or some other country that will take a long time to probably get back here someday. If that's what we're looking to do, is to showcase our area and bring some people back. So I'm kind of excited to hear that almost half of the registrants are from somewhere else in Maine. And because I think really some of those people might definitely more likely to come back and even bring other people with them, said it was beautiful. And they'll bring other bikers back here as well. So a little breakdown on that 660,000 we talked about last year in 2017. Out of this $660,000, about $262,000 were really expenses that Bike Maine spent on the event. And again, that was everything. It's broken down here. Everything: food, lodging, community relations, fees, what they paid for stipends, all these kind of stuff. This was more or less what Bike Maine spent. And about $398,000 of that $660,000 were money that bikers themselves spent on the whole ride. These are 2017 numbers. And again, keep in mind, in the 5-year total, you know, they've racked up spending here between Bike Maine and the folks that are participating in that event over $2 million. And that's a real big economic shot in the arm, really, for the state of Maine, and especially for our local area here. So, you know, the community impact, obviously, here, after this is done, and for example, Mark is here, Mark Albert is here from a group that is, the group that Fort Kent has, which is the
pedestrian biking path, a group that we fixed the paths in the Fort Kent area there, so there's walking paths all over Fort Kent and be able to bike.
So they'll be happy to hear, by the way, that in each host communities, after they're done, host communities can apply for grants as a result of the funds that are left over from Bike Maine. And this is an example of although the first event was hosted in 2014, 2016, Gardner was the first host community to actually get a grant. 2 communities received grants in 2017. $2,700 were given to Bath District School to construct a pump track. For those of you who don't know what a pump track is, it's a bike without pedals, and there are turns and lifts and everything else, and you could actually be doing this for hours without pedaling. It's kind of a gravity momentum type thing, and apparently very, very popular with kids. And so they gave them a $2,700 grant to do that at the Bath School District, and they gave a $4,000 grant to the Washington County Council for Governments to purchase these repair kits, which is for it's this, what they call Bowl Coast Bikeway. I went by it the other day, and I was at an FAA meeting on the coast, and it covers quite a distance on the coast. It's a bike path, paved bike path that goes through many, many communities, Wiscasset and communities like that. And what they've done is they've purchased these bike repair kits to put along the way. So if bikers that are biking this long path along the coast of Maine get in trouble, there are repair kits there. So they've given grants for that. Next year, I guess $16,500 will be available for the host communities to be able to share on grant opportunities. So, you can really see this map very well from here. But I have a little laser, so I can show you the route here real quick. Remember that the thing starts on the 8th and ends on the 15th. So the first day, actually the day before the first day that they start, people start assembling in Presque Isle. They're assembling around the River Park area, that new community center that they've put together there. Yeah, and the Sergeant building there or whatever. And people will be staging there overnight, and that morning, on day 1, the 8th, we'll bike. Kelly, if you don't mind, Kelly, can you open my thing up? Tell me how many miles that is, because I can't read it from here. It's impossible. I think it's 52 miles. I'm not sure. But anyway, if you'll notice, they don't go direct from Presque Isle to Caribou, which is their destination at the end of the first day. They're going way out here for Fort Fairfield and Limestone, circling back around. And when they arrive here in Caribou, can you read, Kel? Does it say 52 miles?
Wow, that's
Day 1?
pretty small, right?
It is, huh?
Yeah.
I think it's 52 miles first day. Yeah, on the map. So Caribou hosts them. Caribou is going to host them one night.
Okay.
One night. That's what they have.
52 miles.
So they'll arrive, you know, so you know what the logistics look like. Most of the bikers are out of the bike village by, say, between 8 and 9. Everybody's gone. They're gone. Okay? And the shower vans and the tents that were set up and all the luggage that was all used the night before is all set up over there. And there's a group of people will load up those vans and they'll move that all to Caribou ahead of the bikers arriving. Okay? And I'll give you an example of what it would look like, for example, in Fort Kent, when I get to Fort Kent, what will happen when it gets there. But for now,
George,
yes.
just one thing, there's 450 riders, but they also have like 75 support people
Yeah.
that travel all the stuff.
And it could be even more than that.
Vans
Some volunteers will follow along. I volunteered to not be on the ride. It could be as much as, we had estimated somewhere around almost 600 people. You know, 550 to 600 people actually. Could be really following this group here, really. So they stay overnight here. So Prescal feeds them breakfast. Caribou feeds them dinner. And then the next morning they feed them breakfast and they're on the road again. Now somewhere between Caribou and Prescal in that 50 some odd mile, they'll be fed a lunch, a light lunch, a nutritious lunch. And there'll be rest stops along the way here. So they leave from Caribou the next day, next morning after eating breakfast, and they'll make their way all the way to Madawaska. Madawaska has them for 2 days. So the first day they bike in, and the next day, the next morning, they're fed breakfast, but it's not a bike day. It's actually a down day for Madawaska. No biking that day. So
Day 2 is 50 miles, by the way.
Day 2 is 50 miles.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 50-mile trek right there. And remember, some of these are hills, some of these are pretty flat. You know, there's all kinds of terrain that these people are going through. They've actually been riding this route for about a year and a half.
1,980 feet elevation.
Okay,
Day
so
two.
day 2. So amazing how much they'll be doing. Over 1,000 of elevation here on that ride from Caribou to Madawaska. So Gary, if I'm correct, the first day they arrive there, and then after they fed breakfast, they're on their own, pretty much, right? That day, Madawaska's got a job to make sure that they showcase Madawaska and the surrounding area. And Madawaska is doing their plans on what they're going to do for that day. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So basically, when they're on that layover day with Madawaska, we're going to work with Senegat to maybe have a bus, bring people to the marina if they want to take a boat ride, pontoon boat rides. We're going to arrange for some bus transportation to the Botanical Garden in St. Jean.
Yes, very nice, yeah.
We have something else too, just a few different
Yep.
activities so people can pick and choose what they want.
Remember, this is pretty early in the planning, so they've got committees, and you'll see the committees in a minute. Their whole job is really just to plan these things. Okay? They'll sleep there, they'll be fed dinner, they'll sleep overnight, be fed breakfast, and they're now on their way to Fort Kent.
47 miles.
Okay, 47 miles to Fort Kent. Now,
Or 47.
the route to Fort Kent, it brings them up, not sure if they don't backtrack towards Beaulieu Road, they're going to come up around the Long Lake, the backside of Long Lake, Birch Point area, and then they'll be coming in right through Senegat and arriving to Fort Kent. You said 47.
7.
I think it's the
46
smallest,
point.
it's their smallest day, by the way. 47 miles, I think it's just,
2,690.
but they got a lot of elevation that Beaulieu Road and all that, that's pretty, that's a lot of fun. You know. So they'll arrive in Fort Kent midday. And remember that the the moving trucks and that are moving tents and gear and whatever else, all the support stuff that needs to be moved will be moved there, including some shower trailers. And these shower trailers, for example, in Fort Kent, they'll be set up. Everything in Fort Kent is set up at Riverside Park. So everything from the pavilion all the way to the fire department has been spoken for. So they'll be parking these shower vans that can shower 42 people at once in the little camping area there that's just off from Riverside Park. They'll be tenting in that whole section, the soccer field and that playground area.
What did they say the acreage was for tents?
4 or 5. Four.
Four.
That's crazy.
What's that now?
That's a
What?
lot of
4
tents.
acres.
4 acres
Oh
of
yeah, 4
tents.
acres of tents. It's amazing really just how many tents there are. Now you got to keep in mind, this is where we need volunteers. This is where the volunteers, and I'll talk a little bit about it as we go into a couple other slides here. So they'll be staying in Fort Kent that evening, be fed dinner. In our case, our dinner in Fort Kent is being hosted by the Knights of Columbus. Dinner and breakfast is being fed by Knights of Columbus. So they'll be fed dinner, there'll be entertainment. As I understand, the entertainment first night, I think, will be it's some movies that have won the awards for Maine something. They're choosing them right now, as a matter of fact, to be able to show them.
Yeah.
It's either
because it's people that work for the Maine Bike Coalition that
Yeah.
were the filmers and involved with that, so that's how they got them.
Yeah, I'm not
And it's
sure. I think
not
that's the
gonna
second
cost them
night.
anything.
Yeah. So they'll be having this presentation and some music in between there. The next morning when they wake up, they're fed breakfast by the Knights of Columbus, served by the Columbiads, by the way. Okay, and then they'll be taking the longest
63.
amount of mileage that they'll be riding on the whole trip will be to Allagash. 62-mile trip, which is there and back. As an alternative that day, they are offering, and we're working with the Canadian folks on this, for them to cross into Canada, head towards Baker Lake, come out, touching into Quebec, coming back around to Lac Unique, Saint Francois, back to Fort Kent. A much shorter ride that day, which would be about 32. For those who don't want to do the 62-mile trip, would rather do a shorter ride, that will be offered to them. Which really kind of internationally touches on l'Acadie des Terres et Forêts, all three regions of Northern Maine, New Brunswick, Quebec, kind of give them a little bit of international flavor, you know. So they'll be coming back in either from Allagash or earlier, obviously, in the day. They'll be fed dinner again that evening. So Fort Kent has them 2 days. They'll be fed dinner that day, breakfast next morning. And then the vans are all loaded up with, they'll pack all their gear, put it all aside and everything else for tents. Our job is to load up all those vans. And then they head here to this location in Senegat. And that's this ride that you see here, circles back around, anyway, it comes back into Senegat. That day is how many miles?
50.
50 miles that day for those riders. So the Lakeview property is the host area for that event. So they'll arrive midday. Again, just the same kind of a routine. Get settled in, set up their tents. They'll be fed breakfast, dinner that night. And I'm thinking there was a hint there that there's going to be a lobster boil. So it's going to be a lobster boil for them that evening. They'll be entertained with whatever they have arranged here for the Senegat area. Wake up next morning, eat breakfast. They finish their last day all the way to Prescal. It's a direct route back to, and that's how many miles?
61.
61 miles. It's 1 mile less than Allagash. It was 62 to Allagash and back to 61 miles. It's a long trip that last day, and there are a lot of hills. I don't know what the elevation is on that one, but it's quite a bit of elevation on that day.
I don't know, it's
They're
good.
going by Gadget, and then on 61, so they must be going that way, and then getting on Diggle.
Yeah,
crossing.
it could be that.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Now
That's a hill.
they're going to need. While we're on that subject, they're going to need. They're going to be working with law enforcement to cover areas where certain intersections, certain roads intersect, where there could be some hazards there, where bikers actually have to cross a lane of traffic to get to emerge into another direction or something like that. So we don't have that job. That's all Bike Maine's job, to work with law enforcement on those areas that are going to need help from law enforcement. But they will need our help on several other areas. There are several subcommittees. I'll quickly just name them and come back. There's the Village Logistics Committee, the Food Committee, Afternoon Activity Committee, Emergency Planning, an Information Center, an information booth, and a Volunteer Coordinator. Those are the committees that each of the host communities have to put together. This is where we need your help. And we're going to need a lot more help than what's in this room today, obviously. Because, you don't handle hundreds of people like this with just a handful of people. It's going to take a lot of people really to pull this off. The Village Logistics obviously is really just overseeing the area where the village will be, the camping village will be, the bike village will be. And that includes everything from making sure that we have the proper water hookups for them, electrical hookups. We have a place for them that if it's a tent that needs to be set up because we're going to be feeding them in a tent, then we need people to help them set up tents. We need people to unload trucks. We need people to load trucks. These are all things that fall underneath what we call the village logistics. The food is obviously one of the more critical subcommittees really needs to be put together. This is a lot of work, a lot of work, because as anybody knows, it's fed more than 100 people. This is big work. It's big work. And luckily, there's some groups that have come together to be able to say, yeah, we'll help you with that. Like for example, here in Fort Kent, Knights of Columbus has come to the step to the plate to say, we're going to do that for you, and ask the Columbians to help them to serve the food. Lakeview, I guess you guys are actually doing it here, but they're going to need help, because if you saw really what she's making, Jen is not making the money she would be making serving a plate to somebody who's sitting at this table. They're getting paid, but it's not necessarily anywhere near what it would be if it was done commercially. And again, this is where they are inviting volunteer groups to come in and help. So coming back again to Fort Kent, because it's familiar for me, Knights of Columbus is going to have their group of people together to put that, help them prepare the food, and another group of people who are going to get paid to help them serve it, deliver it and serve it. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen there. And each of those organizations are going to get a stipend to do that. They're going to get this either so much per plate or a flat stipend. The afternoon activities, obviously this is, these bikers are it's not just about biking for them. They're coming in here and they really want a feel of the culture. So anything we can do to be able to showcase our area, give them a feel of what our culture is about. I don't care if it's an event that all of a sudden we're serving employees. I mean, this is really, we're probably going to be doing that on some kind of a food thing, but we need to be able to showcase either our historical societies or what this area has to offer. Because remember, everything that we do that would really help them out to be able to return is really the objective here. We're looking to be able to show them what we have here, be able to say, you know what, it was nice enough, I want to go back. Emergency planning, so we need another small group of people. These people actually come with their own medical people. They come with their own SAC vehicles, which is they're bike mechanics, the vans, following these bikers around. If they break down on the road, or there are people there to help them with that. And there are people in the village that are actually there, their own medical people that are there. But we need to be able to support them on that end of it. For example, somebody either falls sick and they're recovered enough to be able for them to return back to Prescal and go back home, but we need people to help them bring them back to Prescal. So if that happens and they're in Madawaska, for example, they're looking for volunteers to be able to be in place to be able to help them do that. I'm trying to think of some other things. It's an emergency at home. Maybe somebody's from Wisconsin. There's an emergency at home and that person needs to quickly get back to Prescal. Again, somebody be able to transport them there because of an emergency. If we have to evacuate an area because of a storm or something like that, we need people in place to be able to say, we have volunteers to help everybody tear down and move them in a safe area. I mean, these are all things we're working with the emergency management people to be able to put an emergency plan together, but we need volunteers to be able to be in place to be able to say if we need help, they need help, that we're ready to react. An information booth. Again, referring back to Fort Kent, Donna being from the chamber, for example, she's going to man a booth there for a couple days, and because the first thing they want to do after they've arrived back on their ride, showered, is what's going on? What do you guys have in line for us? Give us, if there's 10 things to do, obviously they can't do 10 things, but they might be able to do 1 or 2 or 3, So the choice will be there. There'll be a board there to be able to show them what everything's going. Whether that be a climb up the Skeeto or maybe a tour of the blockhouse or a tour of the Fort Kent Outdoor Center. Again, I'm using Fort Kent as an example. These are all things really that we need to get the committee together to say, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this interesting for them?
Walker's Pub.
Yeah, Walker's Pub. Well, we have a little microbrewery too, and that's in the plans to be able to point them in that direction. By the way, there's a brewery that follows them. Bike Maine has one of their major sponsors is
Maine Brew
Maine
Beer
Brew
Company.
And so they come with their own taps and beer. And they sell beer. By the way, this isn't the village and the atmosphere and the coming to listen to music. It's not just open for the bikers. We want the community in there. We want to invite the community to be able to come in and talk to these people, enjoy their company. If you see them on the street, you want to be able to talk to them, help them, show them some stuff that's going on. And that's what we want the communities to be involved with. It's not just about them and their little thing that they're doing that day, and they don't really want to talk to anybody else. Quite the opposite. They really want the public to come in all the way through on this thing. So the last thing is volunteers. Obviously, we're going to need a lot of volunteers. And Kelly Martin, for example, in Fort Kent has stepped forward to be our volunteer coordinator. She's very seasoned at that. But she, but Kelly's used to putting together like 500 volunteers. This is going to be a piece of cake for her. I'm thinking really that we're going to need between 75 and 100 volunteers maximum.
Between all the towns?
No, per town. Per town. So in some of them, it's going to be, for example, the people who are doing the food. Some of them is going to be serving the food. Some of this is going to be unloading vans and loading vans. And some of these are just people just on the sidelines, just ready to help if we need help to transport somebody. And so there's a lot of volunteers that are going to be needed to be able to get this thing done. And keep in mind, other than Madawaska and Fort Kent, everybody's just got them for a day. Presque Isle, Caribou, Senegat, it's got them for one day. Fort Kent and Madawaska obviously have them for a longer time. So it's going to take a little bit more work for those communities, obviously, to pull that off. Hayward, questions? So again, I'm trying to not get into too many specifics, who's going to do what, whatever. I think the important point here that I really want to stress is that your community coordinators need some people to step to the plate to chair these particular, these committees. And then we're going to let these committees build their own group of people based on, we know what we need. We have our guide that says, well, you should have 6 people to help you do that, and maybe 20 people to help you do this, or whatever. We have the guides there. Each one of those, there's a section in our books actually that actually tell us what the description of those committees are and what they expect of those committees to do for results. So I'm open to some questions, and hopefully if I should answer them. Dennis.
George, I just get a question. Are they going to fill in the potholes?
Yeah. So I think it's important that you understand that for the last couple of years we've been working very hard on this route. The routes haven't just arbitrarily been picked; they're picked for a reason. Like we've had a couple of people that have come to us and said, "As a biker, you can have a more challenging ride than that." That's not the point of where these routes are going. They've been chosen because of their scenic. The outlooks and the vistas, and one of the biggest problem, Dennis, was Allagash. The road from Fort Kent to Allagash was in very bad shape. Yeah, so we've we had to not just have like, okay, we're going to try to put it in we needed more than we're going to try. We needed like guarantees, and we've been guaranteed now. The contracts are actually out to bid right now, and the pavement has to be done by the end of August, which we're hoping is going to be done much sooner than that.
They actually come up, and once the frost heaves are gone,
They're gonna
They're gonna do the whole route again in July.
Yeah,
And
midsummer
then they come
that.
back up in August, and then
Yeah, Dennis, as bikers, there's nothing worse than being on rough roads. There's another section of road on the backside of Baker Lake, and meeting with 2 mayors and one other person over there to be able to talk about that. That's apparently been scheduled to be done. That would almost need to be done if we're going to definitely be using that as an alternate route for that one day. So, Peter.
Bike Maine also talked along with talking to all the contractors, the logging contractors.
Yes,
To want to keep them off the road, but
just to make them aware.
try to make them aware that there could be
Yeah.
this many bikers
Oh, yeah, that's-
headed up.
And if there's alternate, if they can come out
It's
on
on that
alternate
one
routes,
day.
you know.
I don't-
Yeah. Peter, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I noticed that on September 11th, the date of the 11th, we were transporting, or the folks were moving from Madawaska into Fort Kent, and you briefly touched on lunch, and I guess being
Okay, yes,
us
thank you.
providing the dinner.
Yeah, I never
breakfast.
finished saying what I wanted to say on lunch, did
I'm not
I?
sure exactly what that means for the
So,
receiver.
you know, we've not been tasked as host communities to take care of the en-route lunches. You know, bikers really burn a lot of calories, and they really need good nutrition. And that means more than just a candy bar, or, you know, generally it means hydration and good nutrition. So in between that, Bike Maine has kind of identified a couple areas. Okay, this, we think here would be our best spot for our lunch. And what they're working with, like I know, for example, in Allagash, they're working with a historical society to be able to get some people together there to help them with that. Now, they have the idea of what lunch looks like, Pete. I don't. I really don't know what it is.
Like-
I don't think it's heavy, though.
They're coming through, what day, Aubrey, did
The
they?
13th, they're coming through St. Agatha.
They're coming through St. Agatha.
From Madawaska to Fort Kent, and they've already contacted me to find a spot to host lunch.
Yeah, they
So-
take care, they take care of all the lunches and contacting,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I was just kind of curious because when you touched on that.
You know what's nice about this, Pete, is that we're dealing with an organization that has some money. You know, first of all, they're charging over $1,000 for each rider, so they're raising quite a bit of money with this thing, and they're not afraid to be able to put a high quality event together and spend some money doing it. That's really the goal for them. Really is they want them to be left with a good experience. They don't want them leaving here saying, "Oh, it's the worst ride in the world," and they didn't feed us well here, or they didn't do something well here. Or, the rest stops, the food, nutrition, breakfast and dinners. They're really focused on making sure that we're doing something high quality, you know.
Not
so.
just that, but they're making sure that you're not repeating the meal that they already
Yes,
had.
it's
Not
another
repeating
thing.
it, so
That's-
you have
yeah.
diversity with what
Yeah.
they eat.
I think we're finishing up this Friday with, I think, which will finish up, I think, the menus here for the
Yeah,
entire
I
thing.
think so, because we're doing tomorrow.
Yeah.
One thing I guess that I wanted to touch up on that I think is important too is in some of the slides they showed at our presentation was the support that the community showed these bikers when they were coming through town. And as it gets closer, we're gonna have an idea of what time they're coming through town. I mean, you had businesses outside with signs and kids
And kids with,
cheering them on, and you know,
They
it's
like that.
Yeah, they
They
do,
like that.
and it's. I think we live in a unique area, and I think that you know we can do something really good. I know I talked to Tracy a little bit for the student council to do stuff, and I've talked to Lisa Burney at our school. They also go to the schools and do programs with the kids. They try to hit as many schools like on bike safety and things like that. They don't do it at all the schools, but they have a couple schools that they choose to actually go do a whole outdoor thing with the kids and fun.
And they're inviting schools to come to the village as
Yeah.
well. You know, to be able to speak to riders. Again, these riders are coming from all over the country. We were privy, in my mind, I'm thinking that the net worth of these people that are on these rides, these are not poor people. These are not people who just, you know, come here with ratty bikes, and, you know, these are generally people that are not afraid to spend money for the ride, and not afraid to spend money while they're here. Now, keep in mind, they're on a bike, and they've got so much gear to do. So if, for example, if somebody's going to set up a display for paintings to be sold, that person should be ready to be able to say, "I'll ship that for you."
Right.
Okay. So we're looking really for you know, to give them the ability to if they want to be able to sell their goods and their wares, so be it. Go ahead. We're really encouraging, though, nonprofits to get involved. For example, one of the things they do when they get there at the end of the day, they got to charge some phones, and it's expected that there'd be some little nonprofit organization like the Girl Scouts, whose job is to charge your phone. And they charge, you said $2, I don't know what.
Yeah, that's what she said, $2.
$2 a phone. So, you know, with 400 and some odd people, that's good money when you think about it. And they expect to pay that because It's a little fundraiser for the little nonprofits that are there, and their phones need to be charged. So that would be a good example of a nonprofit, for example, a small group trying to set up to be able to make a little money to raise, for their organization. But it's not limited to anything. There's all kinds of things that could
No,
be.
like even when they do their afternoons, like they have like their beer gardens in the afternoon or whatever. People can be selling food and they're done for the day.
Even when they arrive, if some nonprofit wants to set up and have souvenirs or a good beverage, a cold beverage, if they want, there's nothing stopping them to do that.
Only nonprofit?
I wanted to point out, the Johners are here with pals, for example. You guys usually set up on the Angel Fest thing. And that would be a good example of if you wanted to be set up there doing whatever fundraiser you'd like to put together for our pals. It can be done. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I spoke with Mary Beth in Madawaska when she was there. And they pass right by the cottages twice on their route. And so I suggested maybe I can take 2 of them and just open them. And so someone can actually stop in there.
Yeah.
And
walk
they
through.
can jump off the docks.
Yeah.
They can go for a swim.
Yeah.
They could do whatever they want.
Use the bathroom.
They could use the indoor plumbing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they could, the landline, they could make a call.
Yeah.
And so we're working on that for when they're here, that if they wanted to bike back down the hill, they're 2 miles away. Bike down the hill, and they could go swimming if that's what they wanted.
And see, having somebody at an informational booth to give him that information,
Right.
that's where the info booth comes in, for
Right.
example.
So she was going to work on that.
Dennis?
George, a couple questions. One, can we get a copy of that presentation sent to our emails?
I think we have that on, yeah?
Their website, it's ride.bikemaine.org.
Is this one here? Is this PowerPoint on here? Is this, there was one I worked with Mary
I
Beth
don't know
on.
if the
so-
PowerPoint's on, but all of the
Yeah.
information
Oh,
about
yeah.
the routes and,
Yeah, oh, it is, yes, that's right, that is
all
on the
that,
site.
you
Yeah,
know.
So
the
like
map.
on Facebook.
So I gotta bring it back and share it.
yeah.
The other question was, a lot of nonprofit, and that's terrific. But
Yeah.
I'm just questioning,
For profit,
for-profit people setting up booths,
no problem.
because if it's not allowed, I'm just,
No,
No, I think their
I don't
nonprofit.
wanna go where we're not supposed to.
No, I think the nonprofit is
Promote that
more
later.
for the serving and that
More
stuff. But
where the people are gonna get stipends to unload, like, we're looking, for example, I'll give you an example.
No, that's a
Say
terrific
I can get
idea.
a National Honor Society to help us unload trucks. Well, they want to give a stipend to the National Honor Society. But there's nothing stopping anybody who'd want to do something for
We
profit.
don't want to stagger,
Right.
like, I mean,
No, but if you wanted to set up
for
to
some
do
reason
something.
They want to choose to set up a booth to do something.
Yeah,
they
That
want they,
doesn't get in the way of anybody else.
they
No.
want those things, especially the 2 days. That's
Yeah.
big. There are 2 days in Madawaska, 2 days in Fort Kent.
Yeah.
And Madawaska has a day that they don't even have a ride.
Yeah.
But I think the day that they don't is their off day in Madawaska. They do have a little loop that they can, an
They can do
optional
it. Yeah, they can do it.
that they can do if they want to be on their
And
bike.
keep in
And I
mind,
think they're
Well,
on their own that evening
Yeah.
for dinner. Am I correct?
I mean, I could
Yes.
see
Yeah.
Uber drivers
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
out there setting up. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That, the
People are
other-
gonna wanna go visit and go from one place to another.
Obviously,
Where do you
Dennis,
go?
the downtown areas in these host communities will definitely be the hub of where most people be. Because these people are generally in good shape. They're not afraid to walk, you know what I mean? But having the merchants and all that need to be, if they were generally going to be closed at 6, you don't want to be closing at 6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is during the week. They're like, for example, Madawaska's got them Monday, Tuesday. Fort Kent's got them Wednesday, Thursday. You've got them Friday, right? Am I right? And then they return back there. So this is during the week where generally, merchants generally don't stay open very late. Well, we want to be able to encourage them to stay open later. You know what I mean? It's kind of important, really, that we, again, be able to take advantage, not only take advantage of all these people that are here, but be able to showcase what we have here. That's really the key, to be able to hopefully get those people back up here. That's the whole point of Bike Maine hosting this in this area, is to be able to, show them the tourism aspect of this thing and how wonderful this area is. Now, the routes that they're going to be taking and everything that they'll be, there's reasons why they've got, as I said, the routes set up the way they are, is because they want to be able to get the awe factor out of it.
George, you're gonna be having like monthly meeting on this, or?
I may do another presentation like this if I'm asked to do it, maybe. But once the committees are set up, the committees will be meeting on an ongoing basis. So I encourage everybody in this room to get on a committee. You know, I don't care if it's the food committee or the entertainment committee or the info booth committee. It doesn't really matter. Bike Village, get on a committee. And then they're going to need people to, those committees are going to have to ask other people to help them. Hey, listen, come on my committee, or you know, we need some help. So everybody in this room should be on a committee, if not chairing a committee.
One more thing back to Dennis's about the booths. One thing that they had mentioned down in Presque Isle when we went to that meeting was actually like massage.
Oh yeah,
tent.
yeah. That's
So
big.
It's a 15-minute chair massage. So that's a separate cost that each
They're gonna pay
individual
for.
pays for
Yeah,
on their
individual,
own.
yeah.
But that's a booth set up that someone can do.
You know, we're hearing it here, but out in our communities, the masseuse doesn't know about that.
Yeah, yeah. Again, this is where the committees
Well,
will
that's
come in.
where we're finally like getting to, you know, doing those
My
things.
kind
And
of question was if we could promote those things needed in the communities and bring it forward.
Right, right. Of course, we have somebody here who's doing a good job putting this out there so people know a little bit about this Bike Maine. People, you know, it's surprising how many people I talk to. Yeah, I heard about this Bike Maine.
people don't
What's that
understand
about? You know, what's this Bike Maine
how
about?
big it is, but that's why a meeting like this is good. I don't know, maybe one more would be beneficial.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the weather wasn't great tonight,
Yeah.
but I think it's important for people to
Yeah.
know, yes, what is going on, so people can
Yeah.
get involved and do their things that they do.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you know, we're hosting this as the Valley here, but you know, there's Presque Isle and Caribou who are involved in this Bike Maine as well. It's not just 3 host communities. There are 2 other communities involved, Caribou and Presque Isle. You know, it's not that we didn't want to invite them here tonight, but we would just wanted to do this thing in the Valley here. Actually, Jen just wanted to do something for Senegat, and I said, well, why don't we take the opportunity to go ahead and, you know, bring in Fort Kent and Madawaska and the surrounding communities around to be able to, if they have questions, because they're going to be going through those communities. And by the way, a lot of these bike things, if there's a site to be seen, a historical society or something, they want to be able to stop there and go visit that site.
But the thing is that there needs to be a discussion with those, well, through the Maine Canadian Heritage Council, I think would be the best way, but, because they usually close
Yeah,
Labor Day.
after Labor
weekend.
Day.
Yes,
weekend.
and usually, where generally you would normally see some of these areas closed down. Well, we want to be able to keep them open, and not only keep them open, but have people there manning those historical societies or these points of interest to be able to bring these people in there. These people, they're not afraid to be able to stop somewhere in the route that they might find interesting, especially if there's a sign there to attract them there to be able to, this might be a scenic must-see. They're going to stop. This is not a race here, people. The people that are on these bikes, they're not racing. It's a tour. They're here touring. And if it means stopping and enjoying a swim or stopping and visiting a cultural center or historical society,
Potato House.
a potato house, anything.
We're actually hoping that they're harvesting,
Yeah.
so we
Even
could
if
set
somebody
something up.
specifically does it for them
Well, yes,
on
yes.
the route, that
That would be interesting, because
pre-plan that.
yeah, that would be very, very interesting. Yeah.
So what we, on that point, what we did when we met with Mary Beth a few weeks ago on a Saturday morning in Fort Kent, we offered her the building. We offered
Yeah.
the Knights of Columbus building.
Yeah.
There's an upstairs, a downstairs, there's a backyard.
Yeah, we have to.
That's covered as well. If there's an event that there'd be something that, you know, would not be able to,
Yep.
couldn't control the weather for a day.
Yeah.
Then, you know, we'd be able to use that.
And we have
So
the-
that's just an alternative. She was very excited about walking through the building, and
Seeing what they have.
this is an opportunity that we may have.
Like the fire department, we've talked to Ed Indy, for example. Ed Indy's going to clear out some bays. We don't have to provide bike storage. But we said, look, we have bike storage right there in the village. Do you want it? Yeah, they'd love it. And there's a conference room there, a meeting room there. That might be the great place for the information center. So maybe, you know, when you're planning, maybe things are going to happen. Well, kind of, you need to be working around those things probably.
We've set aside the multi as a continuous.
The multi's perfect for them. They get not only the big building, but they've got the field there. And Madawaska's got a perfect situation there for sure. You know. Jay?
I was just gonna say, they definitely been doing it for the 5 years, and they mentioned like if they need to set up in a host community, 100 by 100 tent or 100
Yeah.
by 160 tent to do the food and stuff, and some of those tents,
They
they
do that.
take in that cost.
Yeah.
Maine does.
And there's many of the communities, like for example, Madawaska won't need many tents, Fort Kent won't need many tents. You guys might need more tents than we would in those two communities, because, you know, with the pavilion and what we have available for, you know, informational centers and to feed them, places like that. Madawaska and Fort Kent are pretty well set up to do that in our locations anyway. But more work for
Yeah,
Senegat. Senegat's got a, you know, whether it's 1 day or 2 days, it's almost the same amount of work for the setup, you know.
Put them up in the Kapapatat.
Oh, yeah, a few of those around here. Any other questions? I want to wrap it up if there aren't any though. I really want to thank everybody for coming out on a night like tonight. It was really nice. And if there's a need or there's a demand, you know, we'll have another meeting. You know, if you guys feel we need to have another meeting, certainly bring it to our attention and we'll see if we can make it happen. But be prepared to set up committees and to volunteer and to serve on those communities, and we really appreciate everybody rolling their sleeves up and getting it done.
Yeah, and all the communities need help, so, I mean,
Yep.
if there's a community that you prefer because it's closer or whatever, that's fine, but if you could see one of us and let us know, so we can.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, I know. He's already called me.
I thought,